Hello and welcome to a feature-length episode of Let's Play Eternal Daughter. After grabbing the final attack upgrade last time, I went back down and saved my game. Hopefully that's not too hard to imagine. With our newfound ability to fly, we can pick up the last few upgrades in the game and move on towards the ending. Fortunately, there's only a handful left. Our first stop is inside the entrance to Dungaga City. You may remember there were a couple of shafts in the ceiling that we couldn't get to. Well, now we can. There are also some areas in the Gradle Cave that we can reach now, and maybe a handful of others strewn around that I'm forgetting, but I can tell you right now there's nothing interesting in any of them. Since we have almost everything already, all most of those cubbyholes can offer is what we'll find in this one. A small uninteresting area with, if you're lucky, an ammo pickup. In fact, the only one worth going to is in the previous area. Fortunately, it's also one of the first places you'll check. The main advantages of the familiar really is in helping to get to all the other awful places that we already went to, without dying in the process. Having the extra firepower and the ability to just fly over guys helps a bunch. You can really boost your confidence in checking out all those nooks and crannies which would otherwise have got you killed. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Hidden inside the area above is a life upgrade, and considering we're going to be collecting the one in the forest that I've yet to collect purely out of inconvenience, we're very nearly at the maximum number of hit points, although from some guys that is still only 4 hits. Our second stop though, on this voyage of completion, is a bit of an oddball. If we talk to the Shulin right now, the Elder will remind us to seek the gifts of the gods. If we go to the Grodol, most will comment on our defeating of From, and Mogrom and Vardon won't even talk to us anymore. None of them will even mention the Flamekeepers. So, it's all the more unlikely that it's Vloul who acknowledges our progress and tells us how pleased he is to see Verida returned. Granted, he doesn't say very much or give us anything cool, but the game notices our thoroughness and rewards us with another 1% of completion. Our objective now is to return to the Temple of Eluriel and obtain the final gift, as well as obtain the 19th heart upgrade on the way. However, there are a few things left that I'd like to show you. All the really cool hidden stuff has been squirreled away in places that you'd never have any reason to return to, like the Gradle Village or Zod's abode. In that vein, there's never been any reason to return to where Haldor lived, so before heading back to our village we must take a small side trip there to find probably the largest secret in the game. There's no sign of Haldor, but that's okay. This barrier was too high for us to jump over when we came here the first time, but there doesn't look to be anything behind it. However, there's actually a secret passage that you can slide through. These two chaps sitting at their computers are Derek and John, the game's authors, hard at work. The music here is uncredited, however one of the random things they can say mentions the track name. It's the music from Leaf Village in Crystallis. The green thing sitting on John's monitor is a Quibble, which seems to have been a bit of a mascot for Black Eye Software, and the little checkboxes flashing around on his screen is actually a fairly accurate representation of the way Multimedia Fusion's programming works. Otherwise, they say a variety of awful things and make pop culture references. They actually say loads of stuff, a sufficient amount in fact for its own bonus video. Given that, I'll throw in most of the last few things I can think to show you about the game into that video and push ahead with this one. And that's quite enough of that. The life upgrade ahead of us has been available ever since we got the Mojak, although you can get up there with a little bit of patience with the 2 jump upgrades. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but basically a brownie will eventually drop down in the right spot and you can bounce off of him to get up to the platform. Normally though, it's just a couple of Mojaks away. And with that, it's time to go on a date with Destiny. I've been a bit disparaging about some of the more heavy-handed foreshadowing being done during the game. However, it's around this point and onwards that the story really comes to a head and fits together, moving it well away from any suggestion of a "you got a story in my Metroid" situation. That story, combined with the game's music and insane difficulty curve, is the main reason that it's stuck with me all of these years. Speaking of this point in the game, now's a good time to check our completion percentage. Well, that's good, we're at 100%, and that's a pretty good point to be at before we return to the temple. After all, there's no reason to believe anything critical to the story would ever occur once we arrived there. Since we're looking good and have otherwise completed the game, apparently, there are a couple of great opportunities for glitching still right here. The first is that of course you need to be able to fly to get back up to the village, unless of course you throw Mojaks into the wall and use the speed glitch and slide off of them and double jump up. If you're really speeding through the game and haven't died or otherwise loaded the game in a while, I'd suggest that you do so at the save point in this area. Several times I've walked back into the village and been stuck floating in the air, completely unable to move. The only way out of it was getting shot and knocked off screen, so if you jumped or had flown into the map you were pretty stuffed and had to reload your game. It's been a long time since we've been back in the village and not much has changed. There's still no sign of the Lorens, but this time we're Dungarga grunt-proof so we can take our time to look around. You can actually fly up to the very top of this area. If you do, you'll find that there's a wall and a ceiling all the way up there. Most areas in the game are like that. There's actually very few areas where you get invisible walls, although I'm not really sure that inexplicable walls are any better. And we're back on the other side of the Dungarga's little fort. You can never break these walls and they do some really weird stuff to Ozar's flame. Anyway, the real reason we're here is that this wouldn't really be a complete demonstration of the game if I didn't go everywhere. The only way to get inside here is to exploit a rather peculiar bug with the Mojang, which I'm especially bad at doing. I picked this one up from TJP7154 and his Eternal Daughter Fun Run, which is a sequence-breaking adventure romp through the game. You can screw up the game's collision engine by standing on top of two Mojangs jammed into the corners of places, and by doing so you can penetrate almost every barrier in the game. Since the game's logic is ill-equipped to deal with such events, you can really mess some things around. The only check on your game progress for the trial, for example, is at the entrance, so if you clip your way past it, you can get to the fully upgraded familiar moments after you initially get him, and fly past every obstacle in the game. Anyway, that kind of ravaged my secondary weapon ammo and accomplished basically nothing, so I'm just going to quickly reload my game and carry on. Right then, onto the temple with no more interruptions. There's been some foreshadowing of the events ahead, so I'm going to give you a little moment to think about what will happen when we get inside the temple. Hopefully that was a bit of a curveball for most of you. Here we are faced with Xar, even though all of his speech will still name him as Gar. He's another pattern-based boss and is therefore fairly simple, but he's also unique in that when he's invulnerable due to his animations, you can still hit the small panel on his chest to damage him. Basically, he alternates between firing 5 missiles to nowhere, 5 missiles that fall down one by one, 5 to nowhere again, and then 5 that come down all at once. All the while, he'll drop hover mines from alternating sides of his body. The mines can be a little troublesome because if you hit him, the engine limitations mean that you can't also hit the mines, so if you don't break off your attack and move to the sides, they can pretty much waltz right up to you. Because of that, you generally want to be attacking from the side opposite from where the next mine will come from, and focus on taking them out from the ground. The usual video game rules apply for dodging missiles from the sky though, so either moving very slowly or moving very quickly is appropriate. He pulls in a rather sedentary 4 damage per hit, which once you have a handle on the boss fight will mostly come from the hover mine hit detection screwing you over, or forgetting where he is in his pattern and getting clipped by a missile as a result. He is however very easy to just pile damage into. If you catch him unanimated, you can get 4 or 5 hits per swing because of his odd shape, and since he never moves, Ilanduru will just hover nearby and burn the ever-living crap out of him. He's basically a big ol' sack of hit points like Afendu was, and once again, pulling some stunts with the head charge is a great survival tool. It's also a nice reminder that you do still have the 2 slide escape moves, and that they are equally great survival tools. Both of the slides were kind of marginalised by the head charge in the previous couple of fights, but here they can be really helpful. Even though this is a bit of a smackdown boss fight, I like to think that it's kind of training you for what's coming ahead, but I'm not sure how true that really is. So, rather than this being the end of the game, we've been told that the Brownies of the Forest have taken the Lurios statue, and therefore Luriel himself, which used to be where Xar was sitting. For reference, that statue looked like this. When we collected the heart upgrade in the forest, you may have spotted a hole in the ceiling. That's where we're headed next, still in the pursuit of Aluriel's gift. One interesting feature of the game's completion percentage is it actually goes up to 105%, not 100. It also doesn't include killing Xar in that percentage, so according to the game at least, stomping Xar into a thin paste is its own reward, and I quite agree. Anyway, that hidden shaft actually leads up to a whole new gauntlet style area that you can totally go to before returning to the temple. If you do though, all you're met with at the end is an empty boss arena. In order to get up there, you need to mix flying with wall jumping. However, the interfaces between areas only pretend to preserve momentum, so if you wall jump through them, you'll probably just end up falling down. You need to use Ilanduru to move between them really, and this will be a tough spot, but when he grabs us, our flight gauge will be exactly where it was before we started wall jumping. It only recharges when your feet are on the ground in some fashion, however there's almost nowhere in the game where sneakily recharging your flight gauge is especially useful. There's a couple of new enemies here, and Dozar's Flame is especially useful in making them go away very quickly. This large green chap is the Bora Bora. He smashes his fist down and shoots a wave of leaves at you, and they hurt a lot. They also have plenty of health, so rather than go toe to toe, it's better to shoot 2 flames at them, and that will almost always kill them outright. It also has the advantage of killing the other new enemy for the area by accident, the Nightshade. I'll talk about them the next time I don't kill one by accident. Sometimes when you catch a Bora Bora just as he's attacking, your flames won't actually hit him, probably because they hit its leaf attack instead. A lot of spaces where you fight them also have fairly low ceilings, so it can be quite tough to negotiate their attack waves. This shaft has brown exploding mines falling down it. They're being spat out by this hideous looking beast the creators jokingly called a Koopa Trooper. The intended method of orchestrating his demise is presumably to fly up and drop past him, smacking him in the face on the way down. If you time your double jumps right, you can also get 2 hits off fairly handily. This is a good skill to perfect. I am of course going to mess it up almost every time, but that's okay. You can also abuse invincibility frames to just walk inside his shell and kill him from in there, but he doesn't have much health, so provided you can get up to attack him without getting killed in the process, you're pretty much set. Rather than go to all that trouble though, there's a tiny pixel you can for some reason stand on the wall below him. If you shoot Nozar's Flame from here, it'll run up the wall and he'll die pretty much instantly. And if you were wondering why we've taken up killing horrible tortoise monsters, the answer is simple: prizes. Within his shell is the final heart upgrade, and that's it, every item acquired. Sadly, the game's difficulty is mostly balanced around every upgrade. I say mostly balanced because even then it's still incredibly hard. And yeah, Ilanduru really likes to shoot things that really make no sense sometimes. Anyway, since that was a dead end, we must search for another path, and since this Nightshade is alive again, I'll talk you through what she does. Basically, she's a stationary guard who'll occasionally shoot 3 quills out in a spread. They hurt a lot too, but really in these first couple of areas they're easy enough to dodge and kill, so they shouldn't cause you too much consternation. The exit that we'll be taking out of here is to the bottom left. It's guarded by another Bora Bora who'll just get the same flame treatment. If you were wondering, Ozar's Flame will only travel up walls and not down them, so you do need to drop down in order to attack this guy. This new area starts with a long horizontal corridor, so again, make life easy and shoot out some flames. Those 2 shots kill almost every single enemy down here. With the flame coming so late in the game, it's easy to neglect using it, but it really helps you get through these areas unharmed. After that, we must fly up this vertical shaft that has dozens of brownies falling down it. My strategy is to double jump and fly from the side ledge, and with the slight excess of flight meter that gives you, skip past the enemies that are milling around on top of here. If you do find yourself in dire need of help, walking back and forth between these 2 areas and flaming all the enemies there is probably the safest way to farm pickups, but do try to save a little secondary ammo for this next area. It's a long diagonal slope which actually makes the Nightshades much more dangerous if they fire their quills. They can easily hit you if you stay on the slope or if you jump, so you need to be really careful. I'd say your best bets are to either shoot them with flames from afar or just fly over the top of them. In fact, if you fly from the cliff edge where you came in, you can actually skip almost all of them, and once you're above them they can't hit you. And with that section cleared, we're through the gauntlet and the next room will contain the boss. Roaming aside, this is the boss we're faced with, and there's stuff going on everywhere. Fortunately, none of it really does that much damage, so if you can get here with nearly full health, you stand a great chance, even if you mess the whole thing up like I am. The boss mechanic is fairly simple. The 5 brownie kings, Pixie, Poxy, Mixie, Moxie and Randolph, if you missed that joke, pop out from the stumps at random around the area. They either appear with a pair of flamethrowers or without. In either case, you can hit them and they'll go back inside and move to another stump. They each have their own health, so as the battle goes on, their numbers dwindle, so the hardest part of the fight is at the start. Head charging through difficult flames is one option, and moving consistently around the area is another, since they do move quite slowly. I normally just sit between these 2 stumps at the bottom and smack them as they appear in the lower area. Overall they're fairly easy to fight, but obviously you need to include the fact that you may only get here with a tiny amount of health. And what with how crazy things are at the beginning, it's quite easy to get kills straight off, and have to do the whole area over. If you feel up to it, hammers are a good option to take pot shots at them with, since if you hit them before they shoot their flames, they go back inside without doing so, although with all the regular brownies constantly running interference, really your best option to actually defeat them is to just go up to them and punch them in the face. Since we'll never be coming back here, I figured I might as well try and fight them on the upper area too. It's much narrower, but you have more options to move around height-wise, so it's not really that bad of an idea. I think that hit finished off the 4th king, leaving only 1 left. As you can see, that makes things a lot easier. If you have very low health when you get to only 1 king left, it kind of becomes a desperate game of whack-a-mole. Fortunately, I prevailed yet again. You can tell since all the other brownies on the screen dropped dead. I didn't immediately notice that when recording since I'm used to the music changing and I've been replacing it for the LP, so I hung around for a bit waiting for fireballs to show up. The exit isn't immediately apparent, but with a little nosing around you can fairly easily spot that there is a tunnel below this first stump. Down this shaft is the longest and best cutscene of the game. To quote my very first episode, it runs for the rest of the video. So there you go, the beans have been spilled. All that remains for Mia to do is enter the portal to Baphomet's realm, ascend the steps of his golden temple, and kill him. On top of the portal you can see the same symbol that the statues had outside the trial, and I think we will be seeing that symbol at least one last time. Now though, it's time to save our game and check our completion percentage. 104%, only 1% left. That last point comes before the final boss though, but chances are I'll see you in a bonus episode before that final update. Until then, good night.